Welcome to Sally Speaks podcast, where we really talk about mindset, but also the successes of so many women in business and entrepreneurial businesses primarily. And this podcast is designed to inspire, motivate, and really help you to be determined to be able to get to your goals. And so today I am absolutely thrilled to have Jen Corcoran with us. And she resides in the UK. And I found her when I decided to pop onto LinkedIn again after being away for a few years. I had left my corporate job at the end of 2019, and I just wanted to get away from all of those suits that I had worked with before. And I thought, oh, this platform is so boring. And when I decided at the beginning of this year to come back into LinkedIn, I found Jen. And she was a game changer for me as far as how she was teaching people to show up on LinkedIn. And so Jen is on a mission to help sensitive, introverted, and empathetic female coaches, consultants, and trainers to toot their horns on LinkedIn in an aligned, easy, and fun way. And I had never thought of LinkedIn that way. She has like the most amazing following of people. She's had a lot of success, both in the corporate world on being recognized as a leader on LinkedIn, as well as creating now her business that just has blown up with so many amazing people in her network. She helps you with making genuine connections. And I think that's the big difference of what I've recognized in being back in LinkedIn. And to attract that consistent ideal client base, she uses a 4-stage PACT framework, which is presence, action, connect, and track. And when we leave working with her, we're feeling reinvigorated and confident and raring to go. And we're excited to tap into all of the prosperity and endless opportunities that LinkedIn offers us. And so I have a story I'll share a little bit later on about the impact that Jen has made to me. But Jen, tell me a little bit about what your journey in actually becoming this consultant within the LinkedIn environment.
Firstly, thank you so much for having me on, Sally. It's lovely to be here with you today. I love everything mindset, so I'm really excited to chat with you. And yeah, I was giggling about what you said about, your corporate life and leaving LinkedIn. And I totally get that. When I first joined LinkedIn, it was a lot of men in grey suits, and I thought, oh, this is a really boring, formal platform. So I think the good news is like LinkedIn's massively changed over the last few years. So if anybody's listening today or watching today, and you're thinking, oh, it is a bit boring, it's not. I promise. You've got so many people on LinkedIn now, and you've got so many business owners and young students. You've got millennials, Gen Z, Gen X, baby boomers. It's what you make of it, LinkedIn, and it's very much changed from that kind of very corporate formal vibe. It's become a lot more personable. So I'm glad that your experience has changed and you're embracing it, because it is an amazing platform if you lean into it. And I know when I first came to it, I was in the corporate world and I was an employee, and I kept hearing LinkedIn, and I was pretty scared of it initially because I'm an introvert, and I was like, oh, do I have to be on here? Do I have to stand out and do stuff? So I ignored it for years. I'm not an early adopter. I'm somebody who kind of sits on the sidelines I know something's going on, and eventually I will dip my toe in and check it out. So I went and saw a talk about it. It was a recruiter, and they were talking about all the benefits, and it was a bit of a light bulb moment of, oh, I think this can really help me in my job. And if I want a future job, this is the place to hang out. So initially I went on it quite, intimidated, quite fearful. And I realized pretty quickly that I wanted to know, how did the tech side work? Never mind strategy or any of that. So I did a quickie course on LinkedIn for Business. And I think that was the game changer for me. Once I knew roughly what I was meant to be doing and the tech side, I was like, okay. And I got really excited connecting with my peers, initially in London, then around the UK, then around the world, then colleagues all over the world, suppliers, just anyone I found interesting. I was like, let's connect. Because I think I realized as well, I had the power of my kind of employers on my shoulders, I was kind of leaning into their brand. I worked for quite a big French bank, so I knew I could make connections on the back of that. And I think once I started seeing how it worked, it just helped me to, you know, excel in my job, helped me to get bonuses, pay increases. It just helped me to do my job a lot easier. You know, if I ever needed to like book a hotel or a last minute restaurant anywhere in the world, I could lean out to one of my peers and say, can you help me? And likewise, I would do it for them. And it was just like, wow, this is amazing. You know, it's a great kind of a win-win platform. So that's how I first started using it for my job. So it wasn't like to find a new job. It was kind of like, how can I use this and, you know, just do things better? And it really helped me from a networking point of view as well. As an introvert, I was part of a few networks with my job, and I'd go to frequent conferences, but I would always feel a bit shy going in. So with LinkedIn, I could find all the delegates in advance and connect with them. So any event I would go in the door, somebody would recognize me and take away that kind of icky feeling. And I still use it alongside networking. I think it's such an amazing platform because your profile starts to talk for you before you enter the room. So yeah, I just fell in love with it in the corporate sense. And then fast forward a few years, my back went, I had back surgery, and I had one of those midlife moments where I'm like, what am I doing in my life? Where am I going? And I realized that LinkedIn was actually my happy place, even though I'd started it as a kind of a hobby, something to do. And I was like, do you know what? It's the one platform that everyone gets blocked on. They don't overthink really Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or any of them, but for some reason, LinkedIn really blocked people. And I loved it. So I was just wanted to share the joy really and teach people how to use it in their own way, because there is no one size, you know, fits all on LinkedIn. It's about getting it to work with you, basically.
Okay. That's awesome. What a journey though, because I think I'm the same as you. I'm really gregarious when I'm at work, and I can build relationships really easily. But when I go to a networking event or something like that, I'm kind of the shy person to actually approach people. So this not only opened up what you were doing online, but it opened up actually events that you were going to, and opened up a different way of having a conversation and building that connection. And I think that's the piece that a lot of us, are really wanting to do, is just build connection with other people. And any business, you need to have those connections first before you actually do the business. And I think a lot of people, I know we see different things on LinkedIn, we'll talk about that later, where people just try to do business first without building that connection. And it usually doesn't work very well. So now tell me, as you were going through that process, so how did you transition now from, the corporate world into starting your own business and within that? Because that's a big shift mindset wise as well, as far as can I not, should I not?
I'm very much an accidental business owner. I'd love to say I was super intentional. I wasn't. It was literally, I had back surgery. I was off work for 6 months. So the first month after my operation, I was just lying down the whole time. And it just gave me loads of time to think. So it was a bit like the pandemic, where we all suddenly had this time. I had that time after my op, and it was like, where am I going? And I kind of made a decision at that point that I was going to quit my job. So that was kind of like step one. And then I knew, like, I really like social media. I had studied like LinkedIn for Business, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I went a bit crazy. Everything online I just really loved. So I was like making websites, learning SEO, just everything written. And it kind of makes sense when you learn that I'm an English graduate. So I love words and I love communicating with words. So I was like, oh, I don't even need to leave the house to kind of get my message out there. So I really fell in love with that kind of online world, but I had no plan. So I was like, I'm just going to quit my job and I'm going to do a few more courses and see where it goes. And then before I knew it, about 6 months had passed. And I was like, shit, what am I doing? I've got a gap on my CV now, and I'm not quite sure what I'm at. And my decision was, okay, I'm going to say I'm a virtual assistant. And this will be like my cover story. So this is how I am not intentional at all. So I created a website, I created a lovely brand, had a photo shoot, everything, created my business. And essentially my business was a front. It was kind of like, this is what I've been doing. I've done my courses. This is what I'm doing now. And I kind of launched it. And then before I knew it, I had 1 or 2 clients. And I was like, oh, this is what I do now. So then I was suddenly like a VA specializing in social media management. And it was very much, yeah, there was lots of mindset niggles at the start because I wasn't intentional. So I was not in that CEO mindset. I was all over the place. So I was very much still employee mindset. And I would say the first 6 to 12 months, I struggled because there was no substance behind the business. And it was only with time I kind of learned, you know what, I actually don't like doing this part. I want to do more of the training and the consultancy. I want to help people do it for themselves. And then, you know, I don't want to work with just everyone. I had to really dig deep and think, what are my values? You know, because it's not something I'd explored in the corporate world. And then it was like, what's my mission? What's my vision? And I would say I kind of got to that in the latter half of the first year. And when I did that, then it all started to flow. And then I got into proper CEO mindset. But for the first year, I was very much employee mindset, and I was like very scattergun and not intentional. So yeah, it's something I've had to work on, I have to say, Sally, because I knew that I was accidental and not intentional. I felt like that for a few years, like a fraud. And then I had to kind of say, okay, it was a bit of an accident, but it has happened. And now you do actually love it. So you are purposeful now, even though there wasn't a purpose at the start, but I still knew the importance of branding. I have to say, I still knew how to position myself. I knew what worked. And it's funny because in my first year in business, I won like business awards, like social media influencer London, social media influencer in the Southwest. And it was kind of like, I felt like such a fraud, but it just goes to show I know how to position yourself so you look good on the front.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you know, I love how you said when I started in the business, I was on all the different platforms, I was showing up, but I wasn't in the CEO mindset. And so that's a big distinction. And I see that an awful lot with people that have now left corporate and come into, having their own business, and they struggle. They struggle for 2 or 3 years before they even start making any money. And I truly believe it's because they're just trying to show up with a certain persona, but yet not really showing up as a business owner. And they haven't put on that CEO hat. So what are some of the tips that you would say, if you're out there listening and you're a coach or you're an entrepreneur, but yet you're not really getting clients, how can you change to get to that CEO mindset? What did you do?
I think it is that deep dive of who are you? What are your core values as a person? What are your values as a business? What's your mission? What's your vision? Because I'm someone that needs to be purposeful. So I know when I fully kind of figured out what is the mission and the vision, then I felt more aligned. I felt like there was substance, and it was easier for me then to market myself because it wasn't just about me. There's a bigger mission and vision at play. And I had to think back to what I was like in my corporate life. And when I was an employee, I was a personal assistant, and I was really fed up of the perception of PAs being all tea and typing because I'm a graduate, and I knew many PAs who had like masters, could speak 5 languages. So when I first went on LinkedIn and started like commenting on the home feed, I was very like mission led, and all my content was about empowering PAs and how can PAs, stand up and be counted? How can we negotiate pay rises? How can we set up networks within our company and all of that? So I was very mission led, but I lost that initially with my business. I wasn't doing the same thing. I was kind of all in my head about, how can I get a client? How do I sell? How do I work this? And I know once I dug deep and had that purpose again, then it was easier for me to show up. And I think a lot of business owners, they've not dug deep enough. And if that's you, don't feel bad. Like I said, I didn't do it for the first year, and a lot of us don't. And I think when you connect to your why, like, it will spur you on. It will make you feel more intentional. And it just feels more aligned. It's going to feel more like in flow rather than forced. And I think a lot of people are on LinkedIn and it's very forced, but it's all about the sale and stuff like that. Whereas if you're coming from an intentional place, it's a totally different approach, and you'll be more relaxed on LinkedIn as well, and it will come to you in your content, and it'll come to you in your DMs, and your whole approach will actually have some meaning behind it rather than just ad hoc spray and pray.
Yes. Yeah. And I liked what you said about the flow versus the force, because so many people are afraid to actually step into that flow. And really understand that when you're in the flow is when all the beautiful opportunities are going to show up, because people will sense that, right? They sense that energy, they sense that mindset. And so many of us do come from corporate where, you know, we live the corporate role and we live the corporate vision and mission. And now we step into our own business and we just sort of say, okay, well, I think this is who I want to work with. Or how do I even come up with a niche? Because I can help anybody, because I'm like mindset, I can help anybody. No, you know, that's great. We can, but where is your mission and vision to be able to really fine tune? And you've got really fine tuned on who the people are that you're working with.
Yeah, but it's taken some time, Sally. Like, I'd love to say it was from the start. Like, you know, like you said, I just wanted to help everyone because it's LinkedIn and you can help everyone. But I think only when you find the people that you really want to help, will you step up your game and kind of put yourself out there more. So I am essentially helping me up from 10 years ago. So, you know, an introvert, an empath, and someone highly sensitive. So for me, it's all about the sensory processing, and I can get pretty drained on, you know, in real life or online. So it's all about using that time and energy wisely, you know, and I think if you are a bit sensitive as well, you can have a tendency to overthink, be perfectionist, procrastinate. So I want to help people to fast track and not make the mistakes that I made. And, you know, you don't need to do everything to get like LinkedIn working for you, but you do need to do the right things. So yeah, I'm basically helping myself. Maybe more than 10 years ago, maybe 13, 14 years ago when I first came on LinkedIn.
Yeah. And so you've been on LinkedIn for a long time, and there's a lot of people that are new there. Now, tell me, like, how many people are actually in LinkedIn right now? Because I know you know some stats about that.
It's nearly 1 billion. So the LinkedIn kind of every quarter release the figures. So the last time they released it was about 930 million, but I reckon it's going to be 1 billion by the end of the year. So if you're on there and you're kind of thinking, well, my people are on LinkedIn, I call bullshit, because everyone's people are on there. It's just a way of like finding them or attracting them. So yeah, it's growing and growing, you know, and the people on LinkedIn are a bit more business focused than any of the other platforms, and they're looking more for that connection, whereas the other platforms are very much like follow a person and consume their content, whereas this one's definitely like a connect and chat and see, can you create an opportunity together.
And I know that's been a big difference for me too, is being able to actually just reach out to somebody, see their profile, pay them a compliment and say, oh, I'd really like to just even, you know, have a half-hour call with you just to get to know you. And that connection, because people have a business focus primarily, they're open to having that connection with someone that, you know, they can also go and check out who I am. So find out I'm not creepy and know that we can have that conversation and not, you know, without an agenda attached other than just getting to know each other. And I think that's a critical piece as well, is to just really make real connections. So I love to just reach out to people that I've met through other people and do that kind of thing. So now, what do you think is the best way to build your audience? So we talked about, you know, being really specific, but what are the things that I would need to do to build an audience?
I think it's just the more you can fine tune who your ideal client is, the easier it will become. You know, like for me, it's basically coaches, consultants, trainers. It's any kind of like service-based female entrepreneur, and I can find them through their titles. I can try, you know, by using the search bar on LinkedIn, I can put in whatever it is, coach, consultant. I can find them either as individuals, or I can find them in groups, or I can find their content. And I think a lot of people on LinkedIn, they don't really know who their ideal client is, and then they're struggling to attract them because they're not speaking to them in their profile or their content, or they're not able to find them. So I think the more you can like fine tune who they are, like a lot of mine I found just putting in the hashtag, like hashtag introvert, hashtag empath, hashtag HSP. And I've come across some amazing people that way, mainly through their content first. And I was like, oh, all these lovely empaths, you know, I'm going to reach out and connect with them. So I think the more you can, really nail down your ideal client, the easier it will all flow. And I know it's hard because niching is hard, but deep down, everybody knows who are the clients that light you up. And so I would just urge everyone, look back on your previous clients and look through and think which are the favorite, and then ask yourself, what is the thing they have in common? For me, it's empaths. Okay. They don't have to be introverts. You know, I do work with extroverts, but they're empaths. So they're all kind of like HSPs, highly sensitive people. So for me, it's the people who are like purpose-led and they're leading with feeling. So if you can like really nail it down, whether it's their title or a quality about them, then it becomes so much easier to find them or to tailor your content to attract them. But yeah, you really need to do that deep dive. Otherwise, you're just talking to everyone. It's not really going to cut through. So yeah, ask yourself deep down, who are your favorite clients? And don't be afraid to niche, because you will actually stand out a lot more, you know, whereas trying to speak to everyone is very hard to cut through, especially with nearly 1 billion members now. So the more you can niche down, the better. And for me, like it might seem like, oh God, she's like only working with these people, but HSPs, for example, are 1/5 of the population. So that's still a lot of people, like, you know. So if you can kind of find one quality, I'm sure you're still going to have a large pool. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to really limit it. But if you think about it logically, it's probably going to be still quite a large pool. And ask yourself, do you only work like in a specific area or a specific location? That's going to make you stand out so much more. So if you like are only based in London, but you say that you help whatever photographers in London, that's going to really speak to people. Whereas if it's just generic, it never really cuts through. So have a good think about whether it's a quality, whether it's a location, you know, whether it's a job title. And yeah, the quicker you can do that, the easier you can find your people and you can attract them as well. And I'm all about doing both, because I wouldn't want to completely rely on attracting people the whole time. I think one of the beauties of LinkedIn is that you can use the search bar, you can find people, you can introduce people, so you can take action as well.
And so that leads me to the question about the premium versus just the regular program, because I know in premium you get access to some different tools to be able to search for people and things along that type of line. What's your perspective on both of those options?
I think the free version of LinkedIn is great, and I would not even contemplate going to premium unless you're fully leveraging the free platform. And by that I mean, you know, totally optimizing your LinkedIn profile and your company page if you're a business owner, making sure they're fully optimized. Because if you upgrade to premium and you've got a bad online presence, it's not going to do you any favors. And likewise, you can build the right audience on the free platform. If you upgrade to premium and you don't have the right audience, again, it's not really going to add that much of a benefit. Premium does have a few nice features, but for me, I think I upgrade to it now and again ad hoc. But I think if you're not going to use the features that you get with premium, you can really make the free version work for you. And I know probably 70% of LinkedIn trainers and consultants are still on the free platform. So I think, yeah, leverage that and get that working first before you consider spending, you know, $500-$600, pounds, whatever a year, and put that money into like your headshot or your branding, your cover banner, or a little course on how to use LinkedIn before you upgrade. Because a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to upgrade to premium because it's going to be better for me, I'm going to show up more in search. And you don't, you really don't. You just get access to some like extra features like InMail, you know, or LinkedIn Learning, you know, or you can look up people longer in search, so you can see who's looked at you over the last 90 days. And that's a great feature, the 90 days. But most people that I know, they're not at that stage to actually be actively looking back. They still need to work on their profile, their audience, their content, their DMs. So I think once you've got everything else working, then explore premium. But yeah, I don't think you need to do it.
Okay. Good advice, because I think a lot of people just automatically get it when they start because they think they need to have it, and yet they're not utilizing it to actually generate any additional income or connections in a way that's going to be impactful. So,
and of course, LinkedIn's a business. It's always going to push you to upgrade to premium or sales navigator. That's how it makes its money. But I just think save your money for now and just get the free version working for you. And when you're ready, you know, when you've kind of exhausted everything, sure, upgrade, but you don't need to be on it every month. Like I said, I upgrade now and again when I'm like in a position to go, do you know what? I'm going to look out at the people who've looked at me for the last 90 days and I'm going to reach out to them. But that's not something I need to do every month. So I think if you're properly using it, you're not going to, I don't have time to do loads of LinkedIn learning courses either. Whereas maybe when you're starting, you do, when you're like, do you know what? I'm going to really go deep and see what courses are on here that I can leverage for the month. You don't need access to these features the whole time. You know, you just wouldn't have the capacity to do it all with your business as well.
So now you mentioned earlier as well about the business page and your personal page. So if you're a coach, or like you're saying you're working with a lot of people that are coaches or they're service based, what's the benefit of having both pages?
I just think it's 2 pages for free, 2 URLs where you can show up for your business and not have to pay. And I'm a big believer in kind of getting prepared. So basically, if people are on Facebook, they'll be aware, like you'll have your individual Facebook profile and then you've got your Facebook business page. LinkedIn works the same. And I personally believe that we will be pushed to pay to play on LinkedIn, like we were on Facebook a few years ago. And if you ever want to do any kind of an ad or a boosted post, you're going to need to do it from your LinkedIn company page. You won't be able to do it from your individual profile. And with like LinkedIn approaching 1 billion members, it's going to be harder to cut through the noise. So I'm very much like of the mindset of, you know, feel the dreams, build it, and it will come. So I've been consistently inviting people to follow my company page. And even though they don't get the posts on it, don't get exactly the same reach as an individual person, they still do get eyeballs. I've still got clients come through my company page. So for me, it's like, it's a no-brainer. If you've got content, why not share it on both your profile and page? It's a way of like reinforcing your message and your brand. And like I said, it's free. It's another URL that helps you be found on Google or Yahoo or Bing or LinkedIn. And I just got content going out consistently on both of them. And I do believe in time we will be pushed to pay to play. Whether it's a boosted post, you know, you can do like a boosted post on your company page, not for much money, you know, but there's no point obviously boosting a post if you've got no followers on your page, because you're not going to get any reach. So yeah, for me, I think it's a great, at the basic level, it's a great brand positioning tool, because if you don't have one on your individual profile linked, you've got a grayed out area for your current role, and that never really instills much like know, like, and trust. So like from a branding perspective, even if you build a page and you never post on it, but you have like a nice logo, that looks better than none. And that would give me confidence if I saw somebody had an actual company page. So when people don't, it just doesn't look great when it's grayed out. So yeah, the 2 main reasons for a page really are, number 1, brand positioning, number 2, paid ads. I do believe that the boosted post or the ad will come in time. You know, LinkedIn's not going to give us access to all these things for free forever.
And so you could, you know, if you end up doing some business to business, it's great to have that business page as well, if that's what you're really targeting, rather than just your personal page. So you can also do a few different posts over there than you would normally do on your regular page, like promoting or speaking on a stage and things like that, where you're bringing forward a message to businesses. Could be a whole different game changer for you than just having that on your personal page. Okay, awesome. That's great. I never knew about that. It's always wondering about that particular element. Now, there are so many different things that we could be bringing up, but what are some of the things that you see are the tools that we can use within LinkedIn now? Like, I mean, LinkedIn Lives, there's so many different things. And how does someone keep up with, number 1, all of the things that are out there? And where should we be spending time, or what should we be doing to be able to stay on top of those things so that we still get that presence? Because I think one of the benefits I know of having a LinkedIn Live or those types of elements is that you can invite up to 1,000 people to view it. So you're getting in front of them again saying, hey, I'm doing this. So can you tell us a little bit more about what those things are that we should be leveraging outside of just our normal day-to-day posts?
Yeah, I think there are lots of features, you know, like you mentioned, like LinkedIn Live, you can have a LinkedIn audio room, you can have a LinkedIn newsletter, or you can just have like general posts on the home feed. And it's very much a personal choice. So I would ask yourself, do you prefer writing? Do you prefer video? Or do you prefer audio? Because we're all different, and what works for one won't work for another. And you have to be consistent on LinkedIn. So there's no point like forcing yourself to do a LinkedIn Live and go live on video if you absolutely hate it and you're not going to do it again. It's far better if you prefer the written word to invest your time like in a newsletter or written posts. So I think ask yourself what works for you, because there are all these different features like carousels, polls, you know, photos, written posts. You don't have to do them all. I know so many people who are successful with just maybe one or two different styles of posts. So some people are text only, short text posts, and they build a following because certain people like that. And then other people are popular with photos, you know, like brand photographers, graphic designers, because their visuals are so great and they connect with their audience that way. Other people prefer long form copy, so they like writing newsletters. Other people are amazing on video and they love that live feeling, so LinkedIn Live's perfect for them. Others prefer shorter videos, you know, pre-recorded, want to do like a 30-second tip or a 60-second tip. So it's all about figuring out what feels achievable, because if it's not achievable, you're not going to be consistent. So don't feel the pressure to try all the things. You know, I did LinkedIn Live, I would say, for the first 18 months after it came out, and I liked it, but I didn't love it. You know, as an introvert, I still prefer written. So I kind of, you know, made the decision myself, you know, I'm going to focus more on my newsletter, and that's brought me more joy and more leads, because that's easier for me to do. I'll happily go on a live as a guest, but you won't see me hosting as many, just because it's just not my preferred medium. And I think when you find the one that works for you, whether it is written posts or long form, whatever, stick with that. And don't be afraid. You know, there's always going to be new features, there's always going to be sexy new things, but you don't need to do them all. You know, just figure out what feels good for you and then be consistent. And I think the thing on LinkedIn, it's not about frequency, it's about consistency. So if you decide you want to show up like once a week, keep, you know, showing up once a week, or, you know, once a month. Some people will want to be on there a lot more. I'm on there obviously 5-6 days a week. I love it, but not everybody does. So I think, it's about just leaning in and asking yourself what feels good. And, you know, there's no point forcing yourself, because it's never, you know, the energy is not going to be right as well. And you're just going to block yourself from doing the thing. So just ask yourself deep down what feels good. And if none of it feels good, outsource, get somebody to do like your content for you, so you've got that presence, so you're staying top of mind.
Yeah. And I think that's, you know, I've heard lots of people say, well, I only post 3 days a week because that's what I've been told. And so, you know, for me, I think that that's something that somebody taught at one point, but I believe fully in going with the energy of what you're feeling in that particular day, forward, what it is that feels good for you, because there's obviously a message that you need to share at that particular moment that's going to impact people. So, you know, that's part of the mindset in my perspective, is really actually understanding that I don't have to stick to a routine just because someone told me that routine is what is important. Because if I'm feeling all of a sudden that there's something's come to me and I need to get that message out, that message is going to really resonate and it's going to attract a lot of people. And so for me, that is a big element of the posting, and also showing up in different ways, right? From a, you know, you might have a graphic that you've created on Canva or done anything like that one day, and then another day you might do, like you said, a small 30-second video to change up how you're showing up. I think is, in my opinion, is good too, because it just attracts different people that are looking to get to know you, because it's still about the know, like, and trust, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like you say, if you use different content types, it will attract different people. Whereas if you just use the one type the whole time, you're just going to resonate with that type of a person, whether they're visual or auditory or kinesthetic, whatever works for them. It's all trial and error on LinkedIn, and not being afraid to play around and figure out what works for you, because you might think, oh, I'm going to hate something, and then you do it and you go, you know what, I actually love it. So don't be afraid to try things. You know, we're all trying. There's nobody that has all their shit together. We're all making it up as we go along in business. So like literally try things. That's the only way you're going to find out if you're good at it or if you want to do it again. And you could surprise yourself. I was terrified of LinkedIn, like I said at the start, and now I'm a LinkedIn consultant and trainer. So you never know, like definitely be up for trying things. And I think, yeah, when you mentioned about LinkedIn Lives and 1,000, being able to invite 1,000 people. So it's more so a LinkedIn event page. So you can create a LinkedIn event page and then you can link to either a LinkedIn Live or a LinkedIn audio room or an external event, like maybe you're doing a physical event, or it could be you're doing a webinar on Zoom. So you can create a LinkedIn event page, a link to any of these, and then you can invite 1,000 first degree connections every few days. So I am a big fan of LinkedIn event pages if you are someone who wants to do some kind of an event, whether it is online, so a live, a webinar, an audio room, or a physical event. I think LinkedIn event pages are an amazing feature, you know, just because you can get so much people invited so quickly. And, you know, even if people, they accept your invite and they don't actually sign up for the event, a lot of people forget to click through, you can still message them, you can share the replay with them. So even a month after the event, you can see all the people who signed up to the page. Whereas if you were to do that with any other content, you really have to look back to find that particular post. Whereas accessing previous events is pretty easy to your profile. So I agree, like LinkedIn event pages are great if you want to run some kind of an event. And I do that if I'm ever doing like a webinar or a live or anything. I will always set up a LinkedIn event page because it's just a great way of getting the message out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I like to do them as well. And I've done, actually I've got to give a little kudos to Jen because when I first really stepped back into LinkedIn was in January of this year. And I made a decision that this is where I was going to find the people that I would prefer to do business with. I had been on other social platforms and I wasn't getting the traction that I wanted. And I thought, okay, I left after I left my corporate career because it was a number of suits out there and I was kind of bored with the platform. And I said, it doesn't really suit me. And so I came back in intentionally in January, made the decision I was going to actually learn more about it, similar to what you did when you first started to learn about LinkedIn, but also to see what was out there. And for some reason, you came up in my feed within a while, no doubt, because of what you were doing. But what I found was that when I stepped into following you, that not only did you have a community that you started called the Super Connectors. I had joined that because I had been on a couple of your little seminars and seen what you were doing. And I thought, okay, I'm going to join this community. And in that community, what I found was not only a lot of other people just like me that were learning or growing their businesses, but you were putting up some different posts to support us. And one of those posts that you would put up, I believe it was on a Friday, is this is a collab day. Let's collaborate as a group. And if you want to do a LinkedIn Live, if you want to do a podcast, if you got anything, put in there what you're about and let's get forward. And I had never done a LinkedIn Live and I had played around with my podcast in the year before. I'd only done 4 episodes, but I decided that I wanted to, number 1, grow a global market. Number 2, I wanted to be on LinkedIn. And number 3, I wanted to get my podcast weekly. And I really need to shout out Jen for this because of her collaboration within her group, I just went in there and said, hey, this is what I do. And this is, what I'm looking for. I started doing LinkedIn Lives without having to know how to do it. I just committed to a couple of different people to go on with them. So found people from within the group to do that. I found people for my podcast globally. And it really was a game changer for me because of the opportunities that you presented just to your community. And that's how today we ended up on this, this podcast today. And, it's things like that I never knew existed within this platform. And so if anybody is watching and you have any doubts about what you're doing on LinkedIn, or you're feeling like you're just not getting those results, I just feel so blessed because in the first month that I made that decision, I found Jen, I found her group, I put myself out there not knowing what to expect, and it just changed the dynamic of my business. So I am forever grateful for the work that you do, and I really appreciate that. But I would highly suggest that you check out Jen, because she is such a down-to-earth person, and she also is really wants to support you in having that success. And that collab post is up every Friday. And so I intentionally now go and look for it. And some days I've gone and looked for it and then I flip off to something else. But this last week I went back in again and said, yes, I have to go and check that Friday one out again, just to see who's out there. But I made so many connections. And those are the kinds of things that as a business owner, I would, I like to collaborate, but I've never done a group before. So that's part of what I want to do, is to create that group on LinkedIn. But do you have to have a certain number of followers or be approved as a creative to do different things? So can you tell me just a little bit about that? Because I can do that because I've got what I need. I've checked it, but others may not understand how that works.
Yeah, anybody can start up a LinkedIn group. So you don't have to have like a certain amount of connections or followers, so you can do a group straight away. If you wanted to set up like a LinkedIn newsletter or LinkedIn Live or anything, you tend to need over 150 connections. Or if you're going to do it from like your company page, like the newsletter or LinkedIn Live on there, you'd need at least 150 followers. So it's not a super large amount. And I think if you get intentional and you reach out to people, I start off with people maybe that you've met physically. If you're going to any kind of local events or anyone who's helped you in your business, maybe it's like your website designer, your accountant, before you know it, you will have 150 connections, So there's no real limits to setting anything up like that. So for LinkedIn Live or access to a newsletter or anything like that, you have to switch on creator mode at the top of your profile, and then you will get access to the live and the newsletter. They're not automatic. LinkedIn like to make things a little bit hard for us, and it's not. And most consultants and trainers, we do slag off LinkedIn in a loving way, because it's not always intuitive, and you don't always get notified when you get these features. You kind of find out accidentally that you've got them. But I think you don't need to have a massive following or a massive number of connections to tap into the features. You just need to just be intentional, connect with the right people. And then like you did, just be brave, just say yes. I remember somebody asking me on a LinkedIn Live at the start of the pandemic, and I was like having palpitations thinking, oh my God, I hate this, I'm going to do it. And I actually had fun. And then when I came off it, I was like, I'm going to do another. And then eventually I did my own. So like, do embrace the messy, because that's where the magic happens. And I think anything kind of live, people are a bit more forgiving. It doesn't have to be perfect. I personally did that. This like a live podcast or going live on LinkedIn, rather than somebody saying, go off and make me a video on XYZ. That can take me a lot longer. Even if it's a minute video, that can be hard to get it nailed, and you're doing it again and again and again. Whereas people are more forgiving with live. If you, if you get a bit tongue-tied, you say the wrong thing, or you get brain fog, it's all right, whereas I think when you're pre-recording, it's a bit like there's that pressure to be perfect, to get it nailed. So you might surprise yourself. So do embrace things.
Yeah, and for me, it was the technology. Like, how does this even work? I took some time to sort of look at it, and I had a couple of people that I did a collab with on the LinkedIn Live that were a little bit more savvy to it. So it's like, can you show me how to do it now? And, we've had times where we hopped on and we pressed the live button before we were supposed to be like, who cares? We're human, right? It's not about perfection. It's about just taking the steps and trusting that you'll figure it out as it goes along. And now it's just second nature. So it's a great way to get in front of way more people than you ever thought you could. And
definitely.
I like to do a lot of LinkedIn Lives with other people, so that we're both sharing each other's networks together, because that's another way to get more exposure for both of us. And it really does help people to build their brand and to build their authority on
Yeah.
the platform.
Oh,
So
people better definitely check you out on LinkedIn Live and connect with you and see when you're doing your next one. And I think you're making me think, oh, I should do more. Passion is making me think, do you know what, maybe I will have a go again.
Well, I think there's so many things that we can do, and it does come down to comfort level. I'm very comfortable being on live, so and I'm okay with making mistakes, and I'm okay with just having a conversation. So it all depends on what you're comfortable with. But I would also say to just challenge yourself at any point in time to go on with someone that can lead the conversation. I did that last week with someone, and part of that came about because she's a client that I'm working with, but one of her posts went viral, like over 85,000 views and 160 reposts and that kind of thing. And we said, we need to leverage this. You're getting so much attention. Let's hop on a live and share more about what you do. Right. And so it was like natural to just automatically take that next step. So when you're seeing things that are happening within your feed, leverage it, because you can pull a LinkedIn Live together that next day or that same day.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if anyone's listening and you're like, how the hell do I do LinkedIn Live? Like I said, it's not always intuitive. So it's not like Facebook or Instagram where you can automatically go live. You have to use a third-party software. I'd say the two most popular that people tend to use are either StreamYard or Restream. I personally love StreamYard because it's quite easy to work around. I'm not a super techie person, even though I am online. I like easy. And for me, like StreamYard is not that hard. So you can, go onto YouTube and just, how to use StreamYard, how to do a LinkedIn Live, how to use Restream, and there will be so much video there showing you how to do it. But I think, like you said, going on as a guest first is a great way to do it, because you get quite familiar. And then when you have to host yours, it's not that hard, I promise. And like Sally said, sometimes you press play too early, or sometimes you think you've pressed play and you're chatting and you're like, oh shit, we're not live. You just have to get over being perfect. And sometimes you go live and your Wi-Fi goes, shit happens. So just roll with it. You don't have to be perfect. I think one of the reasons I love StreamYard as well is because you can do pre-recorded videos as well. So if you were like really overthinking it, you could make a video and then stream it so it appears like it's live. But if it gives you that confidence to do it in advance, happy days. I've not tried it myself, but it's great that there is that option that you can produce it.
Well, and I use StreamYard as well, and I can also have it playing on other platforms at the same time that it's being streamed live into my LinkedIn feed. So it's like, oh, okay, so now I can hit more audience really quickly, right? And impact more YouTube, people.
Or Facebook, it's really good. It's a good platform.
I discovered that about a month or two in, but at the same time, it's like, okay, so now I can choose based off of the topic whether I want it to go to different platforms or not. And so for me, that's kind of a bonus as well, but I really enjoy that. So Jen, I think you are just the most amazing as far as being able to work with the women that are in your target market, to work with those people that are really wanting to grow their audience. We never got to talk about the profile, and I know that's a really important piece of it in getting your profile set up properly. So do you have any tools or courses coming up that are teaching people about that they could hop onto?
Yeah, I mean, if anyone joins my email list, you'll get a profile checklist for free, which is about 7-8 pages long. It's a PDF, and it gives you a rough checklist of the main things you need to fill out in order to show up more and such. So I would start there with the checklist. I've also got a short online course that you can do about the profile. If you're a good DIYer, that's the best way to say it. You can watch that, and then you have your profile open in one tab, have my course in the other tab, and just press play, press stop, go off and tinker. So if you're good at doing it yourself, that's a great way to start. And then of course I help people like one-to-one. I know a lot of people do get blocked, stuck in their head, and they're not sure how to position themselves. So on a one-to-one level, I help people to rewrite like their about section, their headline, and audit their whole profile from top to bottom. So yeah, it just depends. Some people are great at doing it themselves. Some people need that little bit of help. But I think the checklist on my email list is a great starting point. That will give you the main things that you need to fill out. It doesn't give you everything, but it gives you enough so that you're going to show up a lot more in search.
Okay, so we'll put those links along with the podcast as well, and all the links to reach with Jen, because if there's anything I could suggest to anybody is just follow someone like Jen. I'd follow Jen because I'm passionate about the work that she does and how she shows up. Because she's just like she is today. She's very personable. She's easy to understand. She has a real desire to just serve and help you to have success in your business. And that's, I think, what makes a difference from that mindset. It's, nothing's like the push, push, push. It's like, I just know that I can serve so many people in a way that's impactful for them and to help them have success in their lives. And that always comes back. So I really appreciate your time today, Jen. And it's been an absolute pleasure to get to know you better and to have you on our podcast today.
Thank you. I really appreciate you reaching out, and it's great to do this collab with you. And yeah, I'm doing it for just any of the ladies who have the energy struggles. Yeah. It's great being a highly sensitive person because you're always thinking, you're always connecting the dots, and it's similarly if you're an introvert. But energy wise, it can be a bit zapping. So I'm doing it for the people who need to conserve that energy and just to get your brilliance out in the world, because I think a lot of my clients, they are amazing, but they block themselves, they overthink. And I'm always amazed when I work with my ladies, because I'm like, wow, like, I've worked with ladies who've been to Harvard, who are doing amazing things, who are scientists, like, and you're like, my God, you're so like credible. They've either got amazing like education or expertise or wisdom, but they all have the same blocks. They all have that kind of imposter syndrome when it comes to positioning in their profile, positioning in their content, not sure how to reach out. And I'm just like, honestly, and it happens all the time. So if you're listening today and you have like blocks, you are not alone. I don't think I've met one client who's not had a block in the last like 6.5 years. So, and it's usually I find it's usually the best people who have the blocks, the ones with the heart, who are the ones that the world needs to hear from you. They need, because if they don't hear from you, they're going to hear from the people who have not got your expertise, have not got your heart, have not got your empathy, and they're going to be screwed over by other people who are not as qualified or don't care. So I just think it's like, it's my duty to help amazing women to get their brilliance out there, because we can be our worst enemy. So if this is for all the empaths or the people who are overthinking, you are good enough, and you don't need to be perfect on LinkedIn. I think that's the biggest block. I have to be this innovative thought leader. Each bit of content has to be amazing. It doesn't. It just has to be snackable content to keep you top of mind. It doesn't have to be thought leadership all the time. And I think once people learn that, it's quite freeing, and they're like, oh, okay, and you can have fun on LinkedIn. It doesn't have to be boring. And if it's boring for you, that's on you. It's on, you have to be connected to the people who light you up, and when you are, then you will love LinkedIn. But if you're following people or connected to people that you find dull, like, that's on you. The power is in your hands, whoever's listening today, and you can like really find your people and make LinkedIn like such a fun place to play, really. It's all on you. And I think once you realize it's just a communication tool, it's not the be all end all. I love it, but it's not the be all end all. Like, we're still on a video today, it's a great complement to like speaking, networking. It's not everything. It's just a way for you to get your message out there. And once you figure that out and you connect with the right people, it is a joy. And I think so many people are not connecting to the right people, or they've not dug deep enough about who they want to attract. And when you do that, then all the pieces slot together, and then it's easy.
And you need to show your personality. I think sometimes in our business, we get thinking that I have to show up as a certain business persona. And that's great. Do that a little bit, but at other times you want to really make sure that you're just showing up as the normal human that you are. And that's really important because people want to know you before they do business with you. And so it's fine to put other elements in there of who you are, as opposed to just being I got to put up this course and give them 5 tips and do, which
because it's like very one-dimensional, and it's like, especially if you're a coach and a consultant, people need to connect with you, to trust you, to help on the journey. If they don't get a sense of you, and to be honest, they're all going to get a sense of you anyway if they go on a sales call. It helps speed up the process if they get that feeling of you in advance, and it saves your time as well, because you don't want to be getting on calls with people who are all the wrong fit. Like, that is so depressing and so like disillusioning. It's kind of like such an energy zap for everyone. So I think the more you can be you, then you'll resonate with the right people and you'll repel the wrong. It's not the wrong, but the wrong fit, And I think I was afraid of that initially, because you want to attract everyone, appeal to everyone. You have to kind of get over that and kind of go, do you know what? I can only help so many people. And if people come to me, great. If they don't, we're not the right fit. And that's life. Not everyone's going to resonate with you. And not everyone's going to, there's no one magic DM that is going to connect with everyone on LinkedIn. There just isn't. So the more like you can, figure out the way you want to show up, then the easier it gets. But you're never going to appeal to everyone. And that's just the way life is. You just have to find your peeps. And
you will find your people, because they will resonate with you and they'll start showing up. And sometimes, I know at times I've had a whole different focus on a different audience, but I attract a whole different group. And it's like, well, they're showing up for me, so I need to serve. Because obviously that's the message I'm putting through. And so I've pivoted a couple of times in the last year, just because I'm recognizing how I'm showing up and who I'm attracting. And
it's all evolving, isn't it, Sally? We're always changing.
And it's fun. It's fun to see that, because you know what? You're going to resonate with who really needs you at that point. So that's a great opportunity. Thank you once again. I'm so appreciative of you taking this time, and for all of the things that you bring to everybody online, as well as to your Super Connector group. And definitely make sure that you sign up for her email list so that you can get the insights and follow her, because you're going to get so much information on how to be effective on this platform. And I thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Sally. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.